your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us for a look back at Alberta this week. There's been a lot of progress in the fight against the Alberta wildfires. According to Alberta emergency officials, it's mainly due to rain, cooler weather, and the efforts of the 2,500 firefighters. Several evacuated communities announced re-entry plans this past week. Thousands of people remain displaced from their homes as a number of fires continue to burn. Firefighters from Australia and New Zealand have been arriving to help battle the blaze that continues in both central and northern Alberta.
So far this year, we've responded to 521 wildfires, burning more than 1,031,000 hectares. The extreme rate of growth we saw on these wildfires earlier this month has now slowed. Over the past 2 days, firefighters have been able to make significant progress on wildfires on the landscape. They've continued to build and reinforce fire breaks near communities and work on extinguishing hot spots inside the perimeter of wildfires.
We're now in the very final stretch of the Alberta election. Election Day is Monday, May 29th. Advanced polling stations opened at 9 a.m. this past Tuesday, May 23rd. Elections Alberta says a new record was set as close to 162,000 people cast their ballots on that first day. That's around 16% more than the opening day record set back in 2019, when 140,000 people cast their early vote. And many say the advanced voting is practical and encourage others to beat the lines on Election Day. Residents in Lethbridge we chatted with say the process was quick and painless.
Hey, advanced voting is great. You should all come down and get your votes in as quick as possible. It's quick and painless, and lots of great people here. Usually I go on the day of the election, the excitement, but this year it seems important to get it done quicker. The election does seem more essential.
Well, I hope everybody votes.
Number one, you can't complain if you don't vote. And it's close enough this time that if you have an idea who, you better go out and support it.
Advanced voting closes at 8 p.m. Saturday. Bridge City News will have the election results for you Monday night. Seniors faced with mobility issues did not have to leave the comfort of their homes when voting in the provincial election. In Lethbridge, for example, voting polls were put in place at all the Green Acres Foundation sites, giving residents the opportunity to vote without having to leave the site. An official with Green Acres, Donna Koslovy, says it's important to have these types of supports available for seniors living in the community so they too can have a voice.
Some of them, it's a little bit more difficult for them. They might not drive, or just getting to a forum can be difficult. So we also try to arrange forums at all of the sites. We invited the candidates to come in and on specific dates so that the residents had an opportunity to hear the platforms and also ask the candidates specific questions.
Koslovy says this is not the first time they've brought in the polling stations to the sites, and it won't be the last. The Alberta provincial election is coming up on Monday, and be sure to watch Bridge City News for all those results. How accurate are the polling numbers released by the research firms? Well, they might not be as accurate as you think. Our political reporter in Toronto, Sun columnist Brian Lilly explains that when it comes to the Alberta election, you might be surprised to learn about those hidden votes.
We often talk about how pollsters will get the conservative vote wrong in much of the country because people don't want to tell pollsters that they're voting for the Conservatives. In Alberta, there might be a hidden NDP vote because it's so divided and people are so angry at each side. They're both angry at each other that people might not be willing to say exactly where they're voting. I think, I don't think there's going to be a big surprise. The UCP could run away with it. It could be razor thin. The polls have been back and forth over the past couple of weeks, I think, because Albertans have been back and forth. Those swing voters in Calgary that both Danielle Smith and Rachel Notley are fighting for, they're having a tough time making up their minds. Still a decent number of undecideds, and we'll see if they vote.
The United Conservative Party announced that should it be re-elected on Monday, it will introduce Bill 1, the Taxpayer Protection Amendment Act. According to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, the act would be one of the strongest laws in North America to protect taxpayers. Chris Sims, the Alberta director with the CTF, says the act will mean that politicians have to hold a referendum and ask Alberta taxpayers before taking any more money. However, carbon taxes are not included in this legislation. When we return from the break, what will it take for the parties to win over the swing voters in the undecided Calgary? Well, that's next. Welcome back. Well, we're right in the cusp of Election Day, and as we heard from political reporter Brian Lilly, the swing voters in Calgary are having a tough time making up their minds for which party to form Alberta's next government. BCN's Hal Roberts sat down with the Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson, and they discussed what it will take for the parties to win the hearts of those undecided voters.
Tyler, what will it take for both Danielle Smith and Rachel Notley to sway over the 18% of undecided voters?
Yeah, it's a great question, because why aren't those people decided? What are the issues that they're looking for? What are the things that they are uncertain about? There's a couple possible explanations there. One of them is that you had people who sort of voted for, say, Rachel Notley and Stephen Harper in 2015. Maybe in 2019 they voted for Jason Kenney, but maybe they cast their ballot for one of Justin Trudeau's candidates. So you have this sort of situation where certainly the UCP, I think more so than the NDP, has a cohort of people who have voted for them in the past, but are not wildly enthusiastic voters. They're not card-carrying UCP members. They're maybe sort of more progressive conservative types, economically conservative, but quite socially liberal. So I think that's probably one of the things you have going on here, is they're kind of looking at Danielle Smith in particular as leader, and they're maybe not so sure about her, but they're not so sure about the NDP's policies in general. So it is a very strange situation, right? We're a week out, and we have like as many as 1/5 of Alberta voters who aren't sure who they're going to cast a ballot for.
The Ethics Commissioner released a report on Danielle Smith's conduct regarding Calgary street preacher Arthur Pawlowski. Tyler, apparently it wasn't the call so much to him that broke the rules, but rather it was a call she made to Tyler Shandro, who was the Justice Minister back then. But now the report also concluded that it found no evidence that Smith's office contacted the Crowns, which CBC had reported on. Would Smith potentially look at suing the CBC now?
She has hinted at that, yes. I don't believe she has committed to going forward with a lawsuit, but certainly has talked about it and has demanded a retraction and apology from CBC, which as yet has not happened. So it's sort of an interesting story, because you're right, those are the two things that it found. It found that she violated the Conflicts of Interest Act, and that the Ethics Commissioner could find no evidence of what CBC reported. Now, the UCP, of course, has seized upon the CBC angle to this story and has made very little mention of the other part of it, the Conflict of Interest Act violations, which, incidentally, the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, Ethics Commissioner, I should say, compared to Justin Trudeau's actions during the SNC-Lavalin scandal, which Danielle Smith herself had condemned. So it's a bit of a messy situation there, I would say.
Tyler, thank God for the cooler temperatures and rainy conditions in both central and northern Alberta. It's been a blessing in helping our firefighters battling the 80-plus wildfires across the province. More than 1 million hectares have burned already, and what the record was 1.3 million set back in 1981. Now, the wildfires have actually been a bit of a campaign and election issue. Can you explain?
They have been. Part of it is going back to this decision under the Kenney government, where they scrapped sort of these rappel teams of elite firefighters who would rappel from helicopters down to fight blazes. And that team was scrapped to save money, but maybe three years ago now, probably. So that's been a little bit of a campaign issue. Certainly there was time sort of earlier on in the campaign when Danielle Smith was sort of stepping back from campaigning, putting her premier hat back on to meet with evacuees. And actually both her and Notley met with evacuees together and sat down and had a discussion about how best to tackle the situation. Notley, of course, was premier during the 2016 fires in Fort McMurray. So it hasn't been as big an issue maybe as one would have expected.
Let's talk some municipal politics for just a moment here. Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek has talked about potentially not allowing fireworks in the Stampede City on Canada Day. Why not?
Yeah, that's right. You know, the argument seems to be that there are cultural sensitivities at play. It's the 100th anniversary of legislation that excluded Chinese immigration. There's the whole truth and reconciliation trend that's been going on for the last couple of years. And the argument is just that to celebrate sort of Canada and its legacy would be inappropriate at this time. You know, there were similar sort of spats over this last year. Winnipeg, I think, I can't remember if they canceled fireworks or if they sort of canceled Canada Day celebrations and called them something else. But, you know, it's not a particularly new thing in some ways, but, you know, every time it's come up, it's been very, very controversial.
The election race is in its final turn. We've had the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with at least 10 candidates from different parties to find out where they stand on the issues that matter most to Albertans. After the break, we share clips from each one of them. Don't go away. Welcome back. With the provincial election just around the corner, we wanted to share with you some of the candidates that we've been fortunate enough to interview since the writ dropped early this month. First up is Cheryl Seaborn. She's the main competitor to incumbent Shannon Phillips in the Lethbridge West riding. Seaborn is a business owner of 25 years and a registered nurse in our region. She chatted with us about the healthcare worker shortage in our province and says more help is on the way.
We have 700 doctors coming in. We have 1,800 other allied health professionals that are coming in to Alberta, and that will greatly impact the accessibility of physicians to our constituents. And we need to continue to pursue that. We're opening up extra seats in the university here for nurses. I know that that's happening across Alberta as well. All of those things are pieces to a puzzle. Some things are immediate, some things are going to take time, but I certainly feel that I have, you know, a little bit of the inside scoop on what's been going on over the last number of years and have something to offer in that way for people.
Well, many in our province continue to be undecided over which party should form government. Also in Lethbridge West is Pat Chizik with the Alberta Liberal Party, who says her party is a great choice for those who are fed up with both the UCP and NDPs. She likens the Alberta political spectrum to be like a six-sided dice, the NDP being like a 1 and the UCP being like a 6. And she says that we're lacking parties that can fill in all those numbers in between.
I am running because I feel that the candidates are not listening, and I want them to start listening to the people that they're supposed to represent. And if nobody questions them and they just follow them blindly, they're not being put to task. They don't seem to be wanting to stand up and show, these are my values. This is what I'm going to do for you. And if I can just get people, even if they follow the UCP or the NDP adamantly, they've got to start questioning their representatives to make sure that they represent Lethbridge first and not their party leader. And that's why I'm running, just to bring questions in.
Staying in Lethbridge, but now to the other side of the coulees, Rob Miyashiro is the NDP candidate for Lethbridge East. Miyashiro says a big part of his party's focus is healthcare and ensuring more Albertans have access to a family physician.
Our plan is to have 1 million more Albertans have access to a family doctor in the next while. And that's our goal. And it's a lofty goal, but it's something we're going to accomplish, you know, with things like our family health teams. And supporting communities to develop family health clinics where you can have a general practitioner and other specialists as a team with allied health professionals to help serve more people, so they always don't have to see a doctor, but the doctor's available if they need it. Those are novel approaches, so you don't always. So we're focused on healthcare and the health of people, and to get Albertans the care that they need.
But does Miyashiro have what it takes to beat incumbent Nathan Neudorf? He says carbon tax is having a negative impact, not just on business owners and our hospitals, but also on our education system. According to Neudorf, the levy, which went up again last month, is also hurting our school boards.
I've even heard from school divisions that are really struggling with that carbon tax increase because they have large buildings as schools and they have large fleets of buses that are feeling that hit. And it's very, very punitive to them. And that's why we can, as a government, as a United Conservative government, continue to stand up against the NDP Liberal Alliance in Ottawa, because it's pushing these increases. Schools can't shut down, buses can't stop operating. And we want them to see the reality of living in a northern climate and find a better way to achieve some of these goals and having a greener economy.
Barry Miyashiro is the Alberta party leader. He's running in the same Brooks Medicine Hat riding as UCP leader Danielle Smith. We recently asked Miyashiro how best to describe his party. He says it's fiscally conservative yet socially liberal.
I think we are fiscally conservative. I think we really do agree you need value for money and that you have to balance the books and pay for what you get. It's important for people to understand that there's a direct link between what they pay in taxes and what they get in services. And then when it comes to the social side, government has a role to play to look after people, public education, public health care, social services. But one of the things that we're significantly different about those files is that we really think we need to bring some real innovation into those areas.
And it's not just Miyashiro that's vying for UCP leader Danielle Smith's seat in Brooks Medicine Hat. After the break, we hear from another candidate campaigning in her riding. She explains why she has what it takes to help paint the town orange. That's coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. As we continue with the highlights of candidates that we've recently interviewed, we stay focused on Brooks Medicine Hat, where UCP leader Danielle Smith is campaigning. The latest polls say it may be a fairly close race between UCP and NDP. Gwendolyn Dirk has a huge hill to climb. She's the NDP candidate for that riding, where Alberta Party leader Barry Miyashiro is also trying to unseat Smith. Dirk says her focus this campaign has been on healthcare. She says the province needs more health clinics, which are vital in attracting more healthcare professionals to Alberta.
There is an example of a family health teams clinic in Taber that has been running successfully for 10 years. In 10 years, they managed to serve 40% more of residents, 40% more, and in 10 years, they saved $62.2 million. So the beauty of this plan is not only will it attract the healthcare providers back to our province where they don't want to be right now and are not coming back if UCP wins, it will also save money, and it will also serve 1 million more Albertans will have access to primary care in 1 or 2 days where they live. That's our guarantee.
Moving over to Cypress Medicine Hat, Kathy Hogg is the NDP candidate for that riding. When she was out door knocking, she says the topic of conversation will often change depending upon who opens the door.
If it's seniors, they're certainly concerned about Canada Pension being taken over by the provincial government. And I just, assure them that the NDP party would certainly protect their pension and make sure that it stays where it is right now. If I'm talking to young families, their concern is education. And one of the things that spurred me to run as a trustee was when I saw the UCP curriculum land on my desk as a trustee. And, I, along with many trustees and teachers, find that the UCP curriculum does very little to prepare our children for the future.
And in the riding of Taber-Warner, we have 3 candidates vying for that seat. First up is Joel Hunter with the Alberta Green Party. He says in addition to implementing a provincial sales tax, his party will also end our province's dependence on fossil fuels. He outlines his party's plan to aid energy sector workers who would eventually become jobless.
We need oil now, but we need to work hard to transfer off of fossil fuels. So we just have to work have to work towards the goal of not using any more fossil fuels, and as soon as possible. Our government would create government-funded programs to ensure that the workers in the energy sector have the necessary skills, pensions, and seniority transfers options to transition to other industries when the boom times end. This would help to ensure that the workers are not left out in the cold when the energy sector experiences a downturn.
The Wild Rose Loyalty Coalition is fielding some candidates. Their party leader is the former head of the Wild Rose Independence Party, Paul Hinman, and he's also campaigning in Tabor-Warner. Hinman says when it comes to the Alberta wildfires, an investigation needs to be launched to determine what caused so many of them.
What really frustrates me and what's important is information. And it seems like government is being more nefarious and fear-mongering over ridiculous things like the CO2 causing these things versus is it human started? Like they should be out there doing the research to find out, are 7 out of 10 these, how are they started? Are they human started? Is it accidentally campers, or is it actually nefarious? And that should be top news, that letting Albertans know what the cause of this is.
And finally, we spoke with Grant Hunter, UCP candidate for Tabor-Warner. He addressed the attack ads from the opposition and says Danielle Smith's pay-out-of-pocket comments for healthcare from her podcast days were taken out of context. He says UCP would never charge Albertans to see a doctor.
It's unfortunate the NDP are actually stooping to that kind of campaign. We will not ever be charging Albertans to go to see their doctor. That will not happen. It's against the law to do that. Our Premier Smith has just signed a $24 billion agreement with the federal government in terms of health transfers back into Alberta, 10-year agreement. Reaffirming our commitment to the Canada Health Act, which says that you cannot do that. And it's unfortunate the NDP are stooping to this kind of a level in order to try to win an election.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll come back and tell you about a woman recovering from injuries after being kidnapped and confined to a basement in Lethbridge. That, plus more local news, is next. Welcome back. A familiar face to the Southern Alberta school system has just been named as the new superintendent of the Lethbridge School Division. Mike Nightingale will take over the duties of Superintendent Dr. Cheryl Gilmore, who announced her retirement in late February. Allison Purcell, who is the board chair of the Lethbridge School Division, says the lengthy search included applicants from all across Canada. Nightingale's career spans 23 years in Southern Alberta, a former teacher at Catholic Central High School. He's also been an associate principal, and central office administrator with Holy Spirit, Palliser, and Lethbridge School Divisions.
Over that time, I think the foundation always starts with being in the classroom and teaching, and in many ways my heart will always be there. I love teaching and love being with kids every single day. The nice thing about all the opportunities that I've had through my career is they've given me an opportunity to impact more and more students. As you move through into administration, you really get an opportunity to impact more kids and work more closely with staff.
He brings to us lots of great knowledge and experience and an ambition to ensure that Indigenous ways of knowing are something that's weaved into our daily life here in our school division. As well, he feels that students matter, every student matters within our division, and he wants to ensure that students feel that they're a fabric of the schools and they see themselves within all of the schools within our division.
Nightingale's 4-year term will begin on August 1st. To help those facing financial barriers, the city's fee assistance program has been expanded. The initiative will include recreation culture activities along with bus passes. An additional $200,000 has been allocated to the budget annually to help support subsidized bus passes.
We've known that transportation costs, even on city transit, has been a barrier for individuals to access programs, but also to access employment. And with the refugees from the Ukraine that came in early 2022, City Council approved a program to help them with some transit-related costs, and we saw some great success.
So this is something we are doing, so benefit as many people in our community as possible to ensure not only do they have access to recreation, but that they can actually get to those recreational opportunities and use transit. It will not only help with them getting to recreation, it'll help them get to work, it'll help them be able to access stores, and we hope that this will be seen as a positive for Lethbridge.
Those who are approved for fee assistance will have about 2/3 of the cost of their bus pass covered. Lethbridge police have charged a man with aggravated assault and unlawful confinement. Police say they responded to a call on May 18th at a residence along the 1500 block of 16th Avenue South after receiving a report from the landlord that he found an injured woman in the basement. EMS took the woman to hospital where she is recovering from her injuries. An investigation revealed that the 30-year-old woman met the man earlier this month outside the city. She was taken to the South Side home where she was confined and repeatedly sexually assaulted over 4 days. 59-year-old Bernard Alonzo Gibson of Lethbridge faces various charges, including sexual assault, unlawful confinement, and failing to comply with his bail conditions. He remains in custody and was scheduled to make an appearance in court earlier this week. The Lethbridge Bulls hit the field for their home opener Friday evening against the Medicine Hat Mavericks. The Bulls won the Western Canadian Baseball League Championship in 2021, but didn't qualify for the playoffs last season. Video journalist Micah Quinn caught up with the coaches and players from the Bulls to talk about the excitement of a new year of baseball.
The Lethbridge Bulls took in batting practice and fielded a few ground balls at Spitz Stadium for the team's first practice of the season on Thursday afternoon. Staff with the Bulls highlighted what we can expect from the group in 2023.
Good quality baseball here. We got a lot of good local talent that's on the team this year, as well as a bunch of Americans mixed in, and yeah, I think we'll have a good squad this year.
Staff from the team also told us they are looking for families to host 4 players who don't have a permanent place to stay during the season.
We are looking for billet families who have a spare room in their house that the player can sleep, shower, do his laundry. We do provide financial support for groceries. It's a total of $750 per player this year. There is also a discount at some local vendors for these billet families to help support the cost of having a player. Each billet family receives 2 season tickets per player that they're able to host, so they're able to join us for all of the games.
For a full list of the Lethbridge Bulls 2023 schedule, you can visit bullsbaseball.com.
Estate planning is a very important thing that each one of us must consider before it's too late. However, if you have no one in your life to leave an inheritance to, how necessary is a will? BCN's Naveen Day chats with lawyer Stephen Mogden and gets some answers.